I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver.
Welcome back to another episode of The Intentional Thriver, the podcast where we take a look at not just surviving in life, but thriving. And guys, we got a pretty special episode today. We have two amazing guests with us, Nathan and Justine. Naoumi, how are you guys?
Doing great, man.
Doing
great.
It's a little warm there in Vegas, so I hear.
Yeah, that's kind of an understatement. It is. It's very warm. Tomorrow will be 114, but man, we're used to it. Been here for 10 years, and so I think we're
fantastic. Perfect sunbathing weather. All right,
that's right, man. Yeah. That's right, 24/7. Absolutely,
get crispy real quick.
Yeah,
that's right. You can suntan at night. It's crazy.
That's crazy. All right, so for those who know the show, we always like to start off by saying a few things we appreciate and admire about our guests. Let's see, man. So Nathan and I know each other from college days, so a little throwback. We actually both served together on leadership for our fraternity back in the day.
Wow.
Crazy times back then. But no, something I've always appreciated and admired about Nathan is just like how genuine he is. And you know, Nathan's a pretty cool guy. I mean, you know, if people
see that,
he's all right. He's all right. But no, Nathan always had a really great, soccer star, all these things.
Yeah.
But always had like a really great ability to connect with people and be just very genuine. And I've always respected that and admired that. And I mean, that's a big part of what you do now as well.
Amazing.
Justine, I can't. I mean, you got a great name. I can say that. You know, you and I didn't know. Stephanie, do you want to?
Yeah, we knew each other a little bit and just kind of passed by each other. You know, my sister a little more, but just again, genuine as well. Yeah. I think when in the culture that we were when we knew each other, it didn't breed a very genuine personality. So when you saw that, it really did stick out, and I did notice that about you as well, and just kind of watching you on social media and seeing your beautiful family and just like how you're now serving in leadership right at your church is just so breathtaking. And I'm just so excited to just chat with you guys about this.
Thanks again for taking the time. We're super excited. Can you start us off by just talking a little bit about you guys, who you are, your backgrounds, maybe throw in how many kids you have at some point. Maybe, I mean, if they're important enough to talk about, we'll leave that up to you guys.
We'll probably do that.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in the Detroit area, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan.
Don't start singing.
I will not quote Eminem, even though I really want to. But I grew up in Detroit, moved to South Carolina to go to school, and that's where Justine and I met. And always had a passion for ministry, even as a young age. I didn't have a desire for anything else. It's kind of crazy. People always ask me, how did you get in? What did you do? What was the call? I felt like it was a call at a young age that there was nothing else I desired. And so I wanted to really pursue that and tap into that. Grew up in a Middle Eastern home. My parents were born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq, and moved to Michigan. They actually met in Michigan. Got married in 85, 86.
Oh, really?
Grew up in a multi-ethnic home. The church I grew up in was Arabic-speaking worship, youth group, preaching.
English was your second language.
English is my second language. I had to take ESL classes all the way to 6th grade.
Oh my word.
And so there were some challenges there, academic, pretty much my whole life, even going through high school and all of that. But just came to know Christ at a young age in that church, and really had a passion and want to go back and start an English ministry in some way. And God had a different call on my life. One of the things I tell people all the time is being in the South for 6 years, not as long as, growing up in Michigan, but there's a church on every single corner. And I just had a desire after seeing that to be in a place where there's not a church on every corner. There's not a lot of churches. And I think through that encounter, through that experience, through that understanding, was prompted by God to move to Vegas, my best friend in school. His name's Rodney,
My brother.
and he's Justine's brother who serves with me as one of our lead pastors as well.
Nice.
And we always envisioned in school talking about that, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got into ministry together? And we're always like, there's no way, that's not going to happen. And that's another story in and of itself. But
We got the phone call.
through him and another pastor who would come to our school and really invested in me and Rodney. We met him because one of Justine's best friends went to school for a semester, and then she dipped
Clean
out.
toilets.
She dipped out.
Nice.
She's like, this is not for me.
Okay.
But through that, her dad really invested in us, and then eventually really told us that he's planning a church in Vegas and wants us to get involved. And the conversation that I had with Justine after getting that phone call was really interesting, because she's a methodical, process, pray, think through type of person, which I think is important.
We balance each other out.
Oh, absolutely. I'm
Excellent.
impulsive. Justine says, hey, we should trade in our car and get a Honda CRV, and I'm coming home with a Honda CRV. That type of impulsive.
Unfortunately, yeah, that happens.
But it's
Got
that's
it
the
done.
kind of person I am.
Yeah.
But when I had that conversation with the pastor that was moving to Vegas, and he said, hey, want you to move out. You'll be on our church planting team. I want you to be the next gen pastor overseeing student ministry, and we'll see what happens. If our church grows, if it thrives,
Yeah.
threw that in there.
Hey,
Hey.
thanks
Then,
for that.
They said
Yeah, man, I got you, bro.
They said we can't pay.
Yeah, he said we can't pay. I can't pay you. You're gonna have to pay your own way out here. You're gonna have to get a job.
Oh.
And if we, if it grows, if people come, then we'll see what happens. Maybe we can bring you on full time. But I don't even know what that looks like. And so I talked to Justine, and I'm like, there's no way she's not gonna go for it. And I just had the conversation with her, and I explained everything to her, and she's like, let's do it. And that's when I knew. I'm like, that's
Yeah. Because you
That's
guys weren't
not-
married yet, right?
No, we were married.
Oh,
We
you were?
married. Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, they,
Okay.
we tried
they
to
were
wait
they were
till
married.
the end
Stephanie.
of my master's, but in the middle part, we couldn't do the long distance thing for too long. So we got married halfway through.
We got married, and
Yeah.
we packed up our May of
What a crazy
2014, our
Mhm.
our 96 Camry at the time, filled it up with as much stuff
We
as
paid
we
cash
could.
for that.
Yeah, we did pay cash. We filled it up with
Yeah.
as much stuff as we could, got rid of everything else, and we drove out from Greenville, South Carolina to Las Vegas,
Yep.
Nevada, and have been here ever since. And we've got 3 kids, all Vegas born. We like to say that
Yeah.
because that's kind of a big mantra here.
Yeah.
When the Vegas Golden Knights came, and they're like the first
Our hockey
ever
team.
Vegas born team.
Oh.
So they're all born. All of our kids. Our oldest is Rome, and he's 7. Niema, which is grace in Arabic.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
She's our middle child, and she's got me wrapped around her finger.
I,
But she's 5, and then Zaya, which is
It's
Arabic
Arabic.
for light, and that was my grandfather's name. He's
Aw.
3. And
Mhm.
he's crazy.
He's our little miracle baby. Yeah,
Aw.
he came
Wild.
5 weeks early. He's at a
Wow.
tumor, and he's
What?
a NICU baby. Yeah,
Oh my
so he
goodness.
survived, and
Yeah.
wow.
That was-
he's the craziest one.
He's very crazy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will say this real quick. Real quick as well. Kind of part of our story is really neat in that when we moved out here, I had to do the bivocational thing, and that just means I had to do both ministry and work a full-time job
Mm.
until something happened. And the church that I lead at now, that's part of really our church. I used to clean toilets. I did that for 3 years. I was their janitor for 3 years.
Wow.
And I worked at
And,
the
and Justine
preschool.
worked at the preschool.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and it's neat it's kind of a full circle moment in that,
Yeah.
I'm on the executive team now, one of the lead pastors, and
Wow.
it's just amazing. And that's just a longer story. But
Yeah.
we were able to see God's providential hand in every step of the way. It was a
Mhm.
difficult journey. It was tiring. There was a lot of uncertainty.
Sure.
Mm.
But man, God was so faithful in every step of the way.
Mm.
That's
Every step
awesome.
of
Were there ever times where you were like cleaning toilets and you're like, why was I called to
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yes.
But I
Absolutely.
am. Okay.
Oh, Justine was probably so tired of me in that season,
Aw.
because I think almost every day I would come home and I'm like, what
This
is
is not
this?
what I was making.
Like, what is this? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But it was a season where God really shaped a lot of things within my life, taught me about things that I needed to work on: confidence, discontentment,
Mhm.
pride,
Yeah.
ego,
Oh, I bet.
stuff we guys deal with a lot.
Mm.
And it was a refining season, I think, and that prepped me not only to plant our church, but at the same time to be grateful for where I am now because of what I used to do. And so
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. And then how about for you, Justine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we share a lot of the same story, but I guess going further back, we've been enjoying your all's podcast. We started at
Aw.
the beginning, but just hearing your roots and like Justin, you come from a military background
I
too, and a
do.
big family. I was like, that's eerie close because there's 7 kids in my family.
Are there really?
Oh.
And yeah,
Wow.
we traveled a lot.
Oh, the stories
Army.
we could tell.
Yes.
What
So a lot
number
of
are
the
you?
stuff, I was like, I'm the second oldest out of the 7, but
Okay,
I'm the
all
oldest
right.
girl.
You're
So I
higher
just-
up the food
Girl.
chain. Okay.
Yeah.
got it,
Ooh, that's
got
a
it.
very
Exactly.
different experience from 7
Yeah.
of 8.
Sure. But
Yeah, we almost talked like we had 2 families. It was like the
Oh,
3,
yeah.
and then there's a 4-year gap, and then the 4 were raised, differently, or the 5. Can't do math.
Oh, yeah.
But
We got you.
yeah,
something in there. Yeah.
something
3.
around there. So yeah, kind of had the same roots. But yeah, growing up, I always, before I went to college, I knew I wanted to study music, and so I studied piano at school I went to where we met. But I was just like, man, I really don't want to. I don't want to marry someone in ministry. Like I grew up in ministry; it's
Oh,
hard,
really?
and
Yeah.
I was
People
like,
in
you
ministry
know,
are the worst.
yeah,
But
and
then-
I,
But then your boy slid into her DMs. And
we met over, yeah.
Company.
Other people wouldn't know what Bible conference was, but we met during Bible conference at our school.
Whoa.
Anyway, ping pong, and then it was over. But anyways, I was like, yeah,
Well
I'm
done,
not
Nathan.
gonna-
Well done.
you know,
Not gonna date someone that wants to be in full-time ministry. Like I'll always serve, I'll always have a heart for God. But it's not what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
That's when we met, he was like, yeah, I'm Christian Ministries.
we actually talked about that. Yeah,
I was like, ooh.
I remember talking.
I was like, maybe I
Strike
can work
one.
with it. Maybe I can talk him out of it. But
Talk
yeah,
him
God
out
had
of
different
it.
plans.
I love it.
It was funny because even though I didn't like that title of ministry,
Right.
just because it had such bad connotation for me.
Yeah.
When we were dating, we served really faithfully at our local church, and we were just one of their leaders for the
Yeah,
kids. And
Yep.
I was like, man, even if I don't like that title, we're in ministry, whether it's
Yeah.
full time, whether it's paid, whether it's not paid.
That's right.
So yeah, that was just a little background for me. And then coming out, I think you covered most of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here now, almost 10 years later.
10
We
years later.
celebrated 10 years
We
recently.
planted-
Anniversary.
And our anniversary was May. Yeah. So we
Mhm.
celebrated 10 years, and then our church, our campus, which is now, which at the time was an autonomous church plant. We planted that church, and our sending church is in Las Vegas, Shadow Hills Church.
Wow.
But then our lead pastor who planted the church took over as senior pastor of Shadow Hills
Oh.
because their pastor was retiring.
Oh wow.
And so after that, we kind of had a conversation back late 2017. Hey, what does this look like for us? What do we want to do? And we just agreed that I would take over as the teaching pastor at our North campus now and become a campus. And, we celebrated our campus, 8 years now? Is that right?
Easter 2015.
We launched at a hotel and casino for 3 years.
Oh,
Nice.
my word.
That was amazing.
Playing the
Amazing.
slots,
Oh my-
man.
Like-
Going to church.
Bro.
and-
A lot
yeah,
of people
well,
came as they saw our
Bro.
signs.
Bro, those tithes. No, I'm just kidding. But it was an amazing season of so much life change and so many awesome stories, so many amazing encounters. So we did that for 3 years, launched May of 2015, and then we moved to a high school when we became a campus of Shadow Hills Church. And we did that for a year, and then COVID kicked in, and they kicked us out.
Wow.
All church plants that were meeting in public schools were just kicked out during that season. And so
Really?
we're just for like 3 to 4 months just trying to find a place to meet. We're like, okay, do we shut down and just become one campus and merge with our Summerlin campus? It's a very large campus, and
But it was ironic because that whole time we were looking for a permanent space.
Yeah.
And it finally came.
Yeah.
Post
finally
COVID,
came.
yeah.
It finally came. So we have a storefront, which is amazing. It's a small storefront, 4,500 square feet.
Wow.
We can fit maybe 100 people in there, but pack it out, 2 services.
That's awesome.
And it's just amazing. And so
So
we celebrated our anniversary as a church. And so it's been great. It's been an amazing journey.
That's awesome. For those of you who are like, man, these are some cool kids. Like I want to follow them. They do have Instagrams.
We do.
Nathan's is at Nathan Naoumi, and then Justine's. I don't know if with Instagram I have to say but I'm like a 90-year-old man.
Well, thank
So
you.
I'm going to say it. So like
Thank
on the www dot, no, Nathan has at Nathan Naoumi, and then Justine is Justine_Naoumi
Naomi.
on the gram, or you can check out shadowhills.org/north. All right.
Alright.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Got it in there. All right. Move on.
That's so cool.
Let's talk a little bit. Okay, so you guys serve in Vegas.
Yes.
I'm sure I'm the only one who thinks this, but when I hear Vegas, you know, again, I think a lot more like glitz, glam, money, you know, I think of a lot of like materialism. I think a lot of maybe excess, maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, I kind of think of that high life kind of vibe.
Very vacation, you know, like short burst, you know, go spend money, you know. Kind of
And I
thing.
mean, again, that's
Not real life,
That's
I
not
guess.
just like, you know, Vegas doesn't have like the
No.
hold on that market. That is a very
Right.
prevalent thing. I mean, can you guys talk a little bit about, especially working in a ministry and things like that? Like, do you see that? Like, do you feel like as a culture that we're kind of heavily driven or motivated by materialism? I guess that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you
that's
know,
It's
great.
funny because we're actually staying on the strip next week. We're doing a staycation, and
Oh,
it's so great. You don't have to drive
Nice.
anywhere. The strip is right there.
that's
Yeah.
wild.
Lots of communities.
I was literally going to say
It's
that.
so much more
Literally
than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But tell me about when we were in the South, though.
What do you want me to say? I don't know what to say.
Do you remember? We were about
Yes.
to come out, and there was this older lady at our church that pulled me aside.
Oh, yes,
and
yes,
she
yes,
said,
yes.
I'm going to be praying for your husband. I was like, really? That's great. But like, why? And she goes, man, there's so much temptation in Vegas. I'm really hoping your marriage stays together. And I just looked at her and I was like, man, there's sin everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
Vegas, maybe it's just more in your face, but man, that
Yeah.
stuff happens everywhere.
It's really what I tell people all the time is that it's just, you know, there's sin everywhere, but we just billboarded a little bit more here.
Mhm.
I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But the whole aspect of materialism, I think that's a very prevalent and real thing that I think we deal with culturally. So across the U.S. as a whole, but I do think to an extent, specifically being on the Strip, there's a lot more of that. You know, you can get your quick fix. You can get married and get divorced anytime. You can, you know, so there's a lot of that, and the desire to want to accumulate. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. But the desire to want to accumulate more is a real thing where people are driven by the desire to want to get, to want to be, to want
Status.
to do, to, you know, status, what I have, what I look like. How much I own, it really is. It's a big thing because the industry here is kind of shaped to be that way, and so we've seen that even in our church, you know, where people are following a specific trend and making sure that they're, you know, students wanting to gain the approval of others. And so I would say materialism isn't only trying to gain things, but it's also trying to be someone that you're not.
That's
That makes
good. That's good.
it really is. And so coming into the scene, planting a brand new church, and dealing with that type of culture has really allowed us to even reevaluate ourselves and to see if we might have some of that within our own lives as well. And so we're trying to train our family and our kids to not be known for how much we get, but how much we can give.
Wow.
And so we practice rhythms even within our own home. Through all of that, we've come to realize that materialism is a thing that we struggle in within our Western culture. I think it's something that's just very prevalent all over the place. And being in Vegas does open your eyes to see more of that. But by the same token, I really do think it's all over.
Yeah, I think, well, earlier we were just talking about like teaching our kids that at an early age, and we didn't want to be like Grinches, but last year we were like, guys, you're gonna get like one thing, and you know they're spoiled on both sides of the family. So to them they're like, oh, one, okay. And we had given them a trip. You know, it's not like we deprived our kids. Like we, you know, take them to Disney, just one state over. But that Christmas we were really intentional about like blessing a refugee family at that time. And just having the kids pick out things and going to the store and being like, hey, that's not for you. what's something that you would buy for yourself. I think
Yeah.
that's just ingrained at an early age. It's
Mm.
not, and it's hard because we've seen that in churches,
Yes.
Sure.
teaching people even just about like donating and tithing, right? Like at an adult stage, that's just such a foreign concept to be like, wow, that's a lot, you know? But
Mm.
yeah, we've been trying to be intentional about that, even in our own family.
It's greater to we've seen, at least for us, and we see this. It's a biblical principle, but it is. It's greater to give than to get,
Absolutely.
and we want to live by that. Now, are we perfect at it? Absolutely not.
Right.
But we definitely strive to be. So
Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, so you live in a place where, just like you said, billboards everywhere telling you need more, you need
yeah,
this and that. How do you balance financial stability? I mean, your parents, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
need to be
yeah.
financially stable. But how do you balance that with the desire to not be overly consumed with stuff and
Yeah.
materialism in your life?
I think that's a really good question. I think a lot about Matthew 6. Matthew 6 talks a lot about, the great principle. Jesus says, don't store your treasures on earth.
Mhm.
And really what he's saying is don't stockpile things
Right.
for yourself. And I think one of the greatest things that we learned as a society in the COVID era is that we live in a very individualistic society
Mm.
where it's really all about me. It's about my wants, my needs, my desires. Of course, we see it a little bit more here in the West, dealing in a post-Christian culture, where it's very individualistic, where it's about me and my family, my kids,
Yeah.
my territory, my home, nobody else. And I think the need to want to accumulate more for yourself comes from this lie of scarcity,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Mhm.
That's
And
good.
I think that's the issue. The issue is not that we don't have enough.
Mhm.
I think the issue is that we don't trust that we do have enough in Christ, at least for
Wow.
us.
Yeah.
And when you live that way, you begin to live life for yourself, and it's actually really miserable to live that way. It's extremely miserable to live to just accumulate things for yourselves. When you believe this lie that, man, I just don't have enough, and so if I don't have enough, then I'm going to try to store up as much toilet paper as possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get as many water bottles and sanitizer, so much so that it's going to affect other people that probably need it a lot more than you do.
Right.
I mean, I think of so many times where as a church we had to step out and go to the elders' homes and try to take things to them because they'd be like, we're at the grocery store, but we don't see
There's nothing
anything,
here.
and we really need this. But it's because families would go in there and take more than they need.
Mm.
Again, it's that lie of scarcity. It's believing that you just don't have enough. It's this paranoia and panic that causes you to only think about your needs, your wants, your desires. And Jesus says it in Matthew 6, like, man, your issue is not that you don't have enough. It's that you're not trusting that I'm enough for you. And when you live that way, it really changes your perspective. It not only changes the way that you live, it changes the way that you give. And you don't give because you have to. You give because you get to. And so that's really changed our lives, even in the aspect of giving generously. I even think of, man, going back a little bit and even thinking to myself of even when I was younger, the importance of just giving to others. For us, we talk a lot about tithing,
Sure.
but Justine was really the one that kind of honed in on that and really taught me the aspect and the importance of it when it comes to.
It's so funny. He
when it
was
comes
like
to
in his
scripture.
ministry classes.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, you little hypocrite. You haven't tithe.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's like I had to teach him
awesome.
that. But
Yes.
I think in our family, the word stewardship, I think of like budgeting, and I have to be the bad guy. I run our budget, but I think in yes, someone else. But like in American culture, like we live outside of our means, and it's really like normal because I have this friend who's like foreign exchange, but it's a teacher, and she is only here on a teaching visa.
Wow.
But she's like, I just am so surprised that people like buy so much things just because they can.
Yep.
And she's like, I only need this much to survive. And like, I'm going to send this back to my home. I'm going to bless my family. It's not my money. It's God's money. And I was like, whoa, what if like people in America live that way? Like within your means and not, stacking up on the credit cards.
Right.
yeah, that's a biggest thing, kind of like living outside your means because you want that status and you want that instant gratification.
There's a pastor that really wrote a couple of really good books on that. His name is John Mark Comer, and he's from the Portland area. He wrote a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I would highly encourage anybody to read that. But it's a powerful book that talks about the fact that we in the Western world live in this state of hurry. Like it's funny because when I was reading, he talks about the fact that, man, he says, the other day I was driving to work and I couldn't even make a full stop at the stop sign because I'm in such a hurry. And I'm like, bro, that's me. Like, what in the world? That's me. Like, and I'm like early. I'm not even late, but we live in this state of hurry because, even commercialized, you need this. Yeah. You have to purchase this. If you don't purchase it, you're missing out. Yeah. You need this. And if you don't have it, then you're not going to be part of that crowd or that team or that tribe that you really want to be a part of. And when you just slow down, when you stop, when you process, when you think, you begin to realize that, man, there's a lot of things that I want, but I don't necessarily need. Which allows me to live a lot more generously. And so, that's kind of something that we're teaching ourselves all the time and growing in.
That's amazing. Nathan, you were mentioned earlier about like the dissatisfaction or the emptiness that kind of comes with like the pursuit of that. Like if that is your goal, like I'm just pursuing that stuff or I'm pursuing that status or whatever it may be, like the dead end, the emptiness that kind of leads you with, like going to the end of that trail, spending all this time getting all this stuff and then being like, and am I really happy? Is that bringing the happiness to me? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how you address those feelings or how someone could, who's maybe gone down that road and they're getting to that point or like, man, how do I course correct off this? Like,
so good.
How do you address those feelings and that emptiness?
So good. Number one, it's extremely difficult. Number two, we're after joy. We talk about that a lot, even in our home. Joy is not contingent on my circumstances. Right. I could have a horrible day, but if I'm truly joyful, it's choosing to trust that God is good despite the circumstances. So it goes outside of what I'm facing, and it allows me to shift my perspective, so that even if I'm in a difficult situation, I still have joy. Now, emotions, happiness is an emotion, and it's absolutely not a bad thing. In fact, our church right now is going through a series called Summer Playlists. We're going through the Psalms, and it's been amazing. But the Psalms talk so much about emotions. Emotions are a beautiful thing. It's an important thing. Emotions can sometimes get us in some difficult and terrible situations. We saw what that looked like in the 2016 elections, but I'm not going to go there. But anyways, emotions are a good thing, but if we're driven by our emotions, if we're chasing after wanting to be happy, what's going to happen is, I like to say it like this, if what makes me happy as a pastor is putting all of my eggs in preaching and teaching, leadership, administration, discipling, leadership development, all of those things, someone is going to come into my life at some point and do things better than me. Oh, yeah. And what's going to happen is if I'm focused on that and gaining happiness from that, then I'm going to go to this downward cycle of depression, anxiety, and it's actually going to drift me away from my actual full purpose, which is to live for God in every aspect of my life. And so joy is a completely different focal point for us. It's, even if life is difficult, I'm choosing to trust that God is good. I've had to do, as a pastor, you've got to do celebration of life services and funerals and all of that. And, those are difficult, but I've seen family members lose loved ones at a young age, and it's been extremely difficult, but yet because they know where that person is, because of the decision they made to trust in Christ, it's interesting to see how they're still joyful. Now, are they mourning? Are they weeping? Is it difficult for them? Yes. But even though they're in that circumstance, they're still choosing to trust that God is good. So it's a choice that I make every single day when I wake up in the morning. Am I going to choose joy today? That even if something happens that I don't want it to, that even if I have to deal with an issue with a staff member or a disgruntled church member or whatever it is, issues in or around the house, that I could still rejoice in that. And so that's kind of how we navigate through that specific thing.
So
when
good.
it comes to joy. I wouldn't even say over happiness, but
Yeah.
focusing on joy and letting happiness be the filter of that,
Yeah.
the byproduct of that, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But I love how you say that we can still embrace our other emotions, right? God
Yeah.
did give
Absolutely.
us a whole spectrum of emotions. And so I think it's just beautiful how you can appreciate those. There's a place for those, but it always comes back to your focal point of that joy aspect.
Yeah.
Something you said earlier, especially about cleaning toilets and then coming, to a head pastor position, is gratitude and being thankful for where
Yeah.
you've come
Yeah.
from and what
Yeah.
you've experienced and stuff. So how besides that, how have you seen gratitude play a role in cultivating a sense of true joy, true
Yeah.
happiness,
Yeah.
not the artificial or superficial
That's a good question.
happiness?
I think Justine can shed some light on this a little bit more too. But number one, I'll say this: I can clean a toilet really well now. Like, I do a pretty good job.
Hey,
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So if
good
you
skill
know,
It's a
set.
great skill set.
absolutely.
We'll do a
But,
podcast on that next.
That
How
yeah.
to
sounds good.
thrive while
Stay
cleaning
tuned
toilets.
to that one.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But gratitude is an interesting thing. I like to say that gratitude might not change your circumstance, but it can definitely shift your perspective.
Mm.
It really can. And I think that's the beauty of gratitude. That even if I'm in a difficult situation, I can choose to still be grateful for where I am and what I get to do, not minimizing
Right.
any situation, even if it's something difficult. I'm not minimizing it. I'm not ignoring it. We don't even see that in scripture, that word of minimize or ignore anything that we're facing. We're actually supposed to attack it head on, address, and even ask questions as to why we're going through what we're going through.
Wow.
But that's another thought. But gratitude is beautiful because it doesn't change your circumstance, but it definitely shifts your perspective to cause you to be able to see really everything that's going on in around your life that's actually good. And it changes the way you think. It changes the way you live. It even changes the way you love and the way you work. And so that's one thing that we talk about a lot.
I think when going through tough times, just remembering or even going through past journals, like, man, God brought us through so much.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about sometimes, like, we're like, remember when we didn't have jobs, so they wouldn't give us that apartment. So we had to take a picture of our savings for collateral to be like, hey, take a chance on us.
Yeah.
And like we would go to the grocery store. We had like $20. And it was like a game to see like what could we buy this week to survive, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And just remembering those times, and then my present circumstances, I'm like, oh, well, God, he brought us through then, and he's never let us starve or go, without a house, and he's not going to stop being faithful now.
Yeah.
And so those are always good times for us to remind ourselves when we're going through a storm.
I think it's important to go back in time. We do that a lot, right? We want to look at past experiences. We look at pictures from the past, and we're grateful for it. And I think the same is true when we're in a difficult season, when we're in a rough patch, when we're in a circumstance that's actually absolutely difficult. And we're thinking to ourselves, how are we gonna overcome this? And I think it's something that we see in Scripture that Jesus is always telling people to go back in time, even in the Old Testament. Before he gives the law to the nation of Israel, he reminds them. He says, "Before I give you these list of commandments and ways in which you should live, I want to remind you who I am. I'm the God that just freed you from the hands of the Egyptians."
Right.
Yeah.
And so, as a result of that, it's time to obey. He doesn't say, "No, time to obey. You got to do. You got to try. You got to be."
Right.
He says, "No. Remember who I am."
Yeah.
Remember that I'm steadfast in love, that I'm abounding in steadfast love and grace, and that's who I am, and that's what I've done for you. As a response to that, live for me, and watch how you can live your full potential as a human if you do that. And so going back in time allows us to shift our perspective so that we can care for the needs of others. And there's so much strength in that in a season of difficulty, when you're caring for the needs of others, even though you're dealing with something difficult, God not only shows up in some amazing ways, but at the same time, it allows you to think that, man, it's okay to not be okay because I know my God still.
Right.
I know he still does. So
it feels like with the presence of social media as well in our culture, how much easier it can be to compare ourselves to what other people have and what they don't have, and like you were saying earlier on, like even just that status component. I don't know what, like, as people who are active on social media, like, do you guys ever struggle with that or have to work through that
Absolutely.
that comparison of like, oh man, they look like they've got it all and they've got all this stuff, and you know what I mean? Like, how do you navigate through that and trying to
You struggle
find
with that?
like contentment
Yeah.
with it?
I'm
I'm sure you guys
actually
never
had this
struggle with it, but there
conversation.
might be someone out there who might.
In our relationship, I think I struggle more as a woman.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I've asked you in the past.
Maybe you voice it more. Maybe you're more in tune with your emotions in that way.
Maybe I'm just brave and can admit it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. I totally do want to take a break from social media, and because sometimes I'm feeling so great, and I'm like, man, like I'm doing awesome, and I see someone who's doing more awesome, and it can steal my joy sometimes. But I think for ministry, just because a lot of people will reach out to me and I can connect with people through social media, I've never given it up. But recently I have taken a step back and I'm like, okay, being more present with my kids and not always posting my highlights, maybe posting more real life stuff. Sure. But I didn't really struggle with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an epidemic in the lives of so many pastors. I really, really do. Because we live in the age of post your 1 minute video clip and watch the likes, watch the subscribers, watch the shares, and watch you go viral. And you've got a lot of pastors that are doing some amazing things for the kingdom, but don't really have the means to be able to do what others are doing. And so social media, the beauty of social media is it projects a part of you that's probably not real. And so, we've seen in the past few years an epidemic when it comes to even depression, anxiety, and even suicide in the lives of pastors. Some that are leaving ministry because they're looking at what everybody else has, and they want that same thing, and they're wondering, why am I not getting that? Why am I not doing this? Why is this not the way that I want it to be? And so identity is a big thing that and it's any leader, it's in any vocation, it's in any job, it's in any marriage, right? Because we like to project our best self on there, and I'll say this too, like, even if you're that type of person where you're like, well, I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna post how my day is really, but bro, it's still a lot worse than that. Like don't even. Like,
you probably put makeup on. You probably cleaned that portion of your house.
Absolutely. Like, come on, man. You're wearing Lululemons, anyways. But that's a thing that I have struggled with a lot. And I think realizing that, number one, and it's not just social media; it's at large. When we planted our church. Justine and I talk about it all the time, but I lived in this season at first that everything was contingent upon my actions and my doing. Wow. It was all about me. Like, if I'm not there, if I don't show up, if our team doesn't show up, if our lead pastor at the time doesn't show up, then everything's going to fall and crumble.
Wow.
But in our defense, we were church planners.
Yeah.
So
that's
a lot
the difficult part.
So in a way, it was true.
It was riding on our shoulders in some sense.
But as the church continued to grow, and as God blessed, and as we took a step back and saw him do some amazing things despite our inability to be good enough at times, it allowed us to see that, man, it's not about me, that God's activity was happening way before we got here, and we're just riding the wave of his activity, and it's going to keep going way after we're gone. It's not about us. I love how Rick Warren starts the beginning portions of his book, The Purpose-Driven Life. He starts it off by saying, it's not about you. And we had to teach ourselves that. And it takes you out of comparison, and it allows you to focus on the one who's actually in control.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
That's so good.
We've actually never talked about this, but like within our logo, the intentional thriver, all the I's are actually lowercase, and that's again very intentional because it's like you said, it's not about us. You guys were talking a little bit earlier about like the difference between joy and happiness, and again, not that those things can't be together at times, but they are unique things at the same time. Like, can you talk a little bit kind of along those lines about the difference between kind of chasing the idea of happiness, or again, I don't want to assume, but it would seem like that is something that maybe a lot of people in Vegas are trying to do. I mean, really culturally across the country. I mean, again, maybe it's a little bit more advertised in Vegas of like, I'm chasing this thing that's going to make me feel good, or I'm like I said, status, stuff, whatever it may be. Can you talk about the difference between like that idea of like I'm chasing after the idea of happiness versus within your observations and experiences, like finding true, lasting, authentic happiness in our lives?
Yeah, we were kind of talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
I've been reading this book, Restless by Jenny Allen, with just our leadership team. And she quotes St. Augustine.
Yeah.
And what does he say?
He says,
we're restless.
You've made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find rest in you.
Yeah. And so when people come to us because, they have depression or they're struggling through a marriage and really tough times, like we shouldn't be surprised, right? Because we weren't meant for this world. We're just passing through and we're spending eternity somewhere else. And so, some of our races, like you said, the word chasing, that action verb, we're all runners. And some of us are at the starting line. Some of us have just had an injury. Maybe we're sitting out. Some of us are close to the finish. And life is never a sprint. It's not that 50-yard dash. It's a marathon. And so when we do go through life, just thinking about that. And yeah, we can get distracted, right? We can go off on a detour. But just knowing that when we do have that emptiness, when we're chasing things that don't really matter, don't have lasting, significance in eternity, I think it's just a reminder we weren't meant for this world and something bigger, So it's not always a bad thing, that empty feeling. I think because we've all done it, we've all chased things that they weren't the main thing, and we came back empty.
Wow.
It's powerful.
That is, man.
Couldn't have said that better. Couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah. That was really
don't
good.
even try. Don't even try.
Preach.
Justine's got it.
Yeah.
I mean, when she's quoting St. Augustine,
I
I quoted Jenny Allen.
Yeah.
Sure.
But same diff.
Tomato.
Yeah. Oh man, I did that Bible study right after it came out, like right after COVID, right? Or like during or something. Yeah. And it was very powerful in my walk.
So last question I have for you guys, one of my favorite questions. What does it mean to each of you? Our podcast is called The Intentional Thriver. Like, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to intentionally thrive in your life?
That's a good question. A really good question. I'm all about leadership development. I want to see other leaders grow. I want to see other leaders do. I want to see other leaders be. Actually, one of my roles here in the city. So I oversee teaching at our North Campus, but then at the same time, on the executive level, I oversee missions and church planting for a church. So whenever we've got a new church planter that wants to do a residency with us, take them under my wing, get them ready, situated. They'll do a 9 to 12 month residency. They'll get hands-on ministry experience, and then we'll get them plugged in, plant a church. We'll support them. We'll get them connected, and then send them out. And I also oversee missions, global and local. And so when it comes to mission trips, when it comes to missionaries, next week. Yeah, I'm actually next third Friday flying out to Montreal. We're taking a trip to Montreal. There's a church out there that we've been supporting for almost 7 years now, and they're doing amazing things. La Chapelle, which is the chapel in French, and so I'm excited about that. But that's a great church, and so we get to take a team. But anyways. One other thing I do in the city is I work with an organization called the Send Network, which is the organization that planted us through the Southern Baptist Convention. And I get to oversee all of our assessments here in Vegas. So I'm the assessment director. And so whenever we have church planters that want to plant a church anywhere in North America, they've got to go through a Send Network assessment. It's a 2-day intensive retreat where we're gauging their emotional health. I mean, we've got counselors there. We're gauging their mental health. We're gauging their spiritual health. We're working with the spouse. We're making sure that they're ready. We have them cast vision. So they're sitting in front of a team and they're casting their vision. If you can cast vision, then you can plant a church. And so we have them do all of that. And it's a 2-day intensive preaching, all of that. So I kind of oversee that. Wow. And it brings me joy because I don't feel like I'm called to plant another church. Please, Lord. But
someone's got to scrub them toilets.
Right, bro. Exactly. But I love investing in church planters.
Yeah.
And I want to continue to see leaders rise up. I want to continue to see more churches planted. I want to see more people step out and to say, man, I'm ready. And it could be any type of capacity of work.
Mhm.
I love raising up leaders within, any type of workforce that they're in. And so I want to see that. And the more I see that, I feel like God is using us to thrive in our capacity when we give. Again, going back to that, accumulating, and it's better to give than to get.
Mhm.
We're all about wanting to give what we have so that others can grow, so that others can know, and then so that others can live better. And
Mhm.
so leadership development is a big thing. It's an important thing. Craig Rochelle says leadership is influence. And so how are we influencing others to
Mhm.
grow? How are we influencing others to love? How are we
Mhm.
influencing others to be
Yeah.
everything that God called them to be? And so we want to plant more churches. I'm all about that. We
Yeah.
want to plant more campuses. And so we've got visions and dreams and all of that, And so I think a lot of us think to ourselves, well, if we're dealing with something difficult, or if we're facing oppression, or if we're facing setbacks, then it must not be what I'm supposed to be doing. And, we always think to ourselves, well, maybe I need a new job. Maybe I need a new position.
Mhm.
Maybe I need a new spouse. Maybe I need new kids. Maybe I need a new state, And I think the issue is not, it's not a positional change, but I think it's a perspective change.
Mm.
I really do think that's something that God has really taught me we've only been in ministry for 10 years. That might be a lot for some, but it might not be for others. It might be not as much, but, we've thought to ourselves, well, yeah, going back to social media, everything that we talked about, the grass is greener. Well, I love what Craig Rochelle, again, he says the grass is greener where you water it.
That's right.
The grass is greener where you water it. And so maybe the issue is not that you need to do something different. It's that you just need to start watering your grass so that you can have the right perspective rather than a different position. And so I don't even know why I said that, but
No,
I
It's
just,
great. I love it.
That's good to hear. I mean, literally today we're like, is God trying to tell us something
Yeah.
with
Oh
two
man.
strikes
Yeah. It's
going
like
on?
two.
You
Like this is
know,
a historic strike. Like the last time the
Yeah.
Writers Guild
Right.
was on strike was like 2008, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, it's been a
And
minute.
I mean, it's like now we've got that and the Actors Guild
Yeah.
on.
So
on
that was for
strike.
us.
Yeah. No, that
wasn't for the other 3 people listening.
Yeah.
That was
correct.
just for
That's
us.
just for these 2 people listening.
That's good, man.
Thank you for
That's good,
that.
man.
Yeah.
So Justine, for you, like, what does that mean to intentionally thrive in your life?
Yeah. I think of like the times I haven't thrived, and those are probably the times where I've like just gone 100% and I'm like, I want this to be a success. So like most recently I'm the women's ministry director.
Mhm.
So like I think having priorities, because when I don't have priorities, I've seen where I failed in the past. Or
That's good.
I'm a piano teacher, but I'm also a mom of 3. And then I'm my own person, but I'm also Nathan's wife. And that comes with a lot of baggage.
Let's go.
As a pastor's wife. And I go through some, tough times because of that, my association. So
That's the
I
truth.
do claim
Yeah.
him.
No, it's the truth.
But yeah, in the times of my life where I haven't been thriving, even though I've been like great in one area, like, man, I've gone to this teacher conference. I feel amazing about my piano studio. And I'm just like on, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I'm failing in my marriage. So for me, like I used to say it was just, okay, good balance, everything balance. But recently just the word priority has come to my mind, and just like God first, us second, and then our kids. And so just being intentional about like not throwing up on Nathan all the time, but like going and getting my yearly mental health checkup, right? And just like tonight, before we hopped on with you guys, we went out for Thai food, right? And it's like, man, how many weeks has it been since we've been on a date? Like, let's go.
Normalize
Have some boba
Normalize
after.
it, man.
Yeah.
Normalize it.
Yeah, but intentionally
Yes.
doing those things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we've even seen as a family just practicing Sabbath and certain guardrails we've had to put up. Like when we hang out with people, it's usually Friday night. The Saturday, like we're ready for game day Sunday. And so just certain things that we have to say no to, because there's a lot of good things, but not all things are God things, you know?
Yeah.
And that's cliche, but it's so true. When we say no to certain things, we're saying yes to our family. We're saying yes to us. So we've
100%.
learned that sometimes the hard way, but we've learned it.